Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app, on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, and the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. Everything that I'm going to talk about here on the podcast, I gave away 3 hours ago on Off the Floor. That's the way we do things these days. So check it out. Again, link right here in the description. $2.99 per month. You bypass the Apple upcharge. Just click on it. Click all the way through. Sign up. You can cancel at any time. So check it out. It's Off the Floor. This is where you get the most heat. Also, check out the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network. Includes a big Heat fan, our friend Eric Rubenstein. You can find him at ericrubenstein.com. That's ericrubenstein.com. If you're injured in a car accident, give him a call right away. 877-829-ERIC. That's 877-829-ERIC. Eric Rubenstein from this area, grew up in Lauderhill, went to St. Thomas University, graduated magna cum laude. Also follow him on Instagram at Attorney Rubenstein. Certainly the most creative personal injury attorney you will find. I'll just say that, and very, very good at his job. So check him out. EricRubenstein.com. Again, it's 877-829-ERIC. And now, today's episode.
Down to Biscayne. Yikes. Five on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust.
You sound scared.
It's about have the guts, we're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. I said I wasn't going to shave until Jimmy was traded, but this thing's got to go. It's too much. My daughter is a daughter disown her father? Because I think that's what's going to happen. I can't pull it off quite the way Adele does. You can follow him at Digital Adel. You can find him also on our post-game show at times, and also on playback. He's there on a regular basis. Again, you can find me at Five Reasons Sports at Ethan J. Skolnick, and I hope that nobody can find me for at least an hour at some point before the trading deadline, because I would like to have that break. All right, we are going to do a podcast tonight after the Heat play in Brooklyn, but the Jimmy stuff is what you're all interested in anyway. So we figured we would get to this here. I'll go through some of what I put on Off the Floor. Adele and I will go back and forth on some of this stuff to kind of discuss where this leaves the Heat at this stage. But of course, Jimmy Butler is not in New York. He was in New York. He went up for a coffee event, and he was a barista, and then he flew back, and then he was at a paddle event yesterday, and he's actually there today, and supposedly he's going to speak sometime this afternoon to the crowd. So we may have to break up this podcast very quickly and go to that if he says anything interesting. But Adele, I want to go through some of this stuff that's come out about Jimmy and just some reporting that I've done over the past 12 to 24 hours to kind of state where this is. The first thing is just a little bit more color here on the suspension. Of course, this is a 2-game suspension. This is his second suspension. He was suspended for 7 games, came back. I think played is the word I would use loosely in 3 games, and then was suspended again. And there was a report that came out, and this is a case where the Heat and his agent are on the same side. There was a report that came out, I guess, on the Road Trippin' podcast that Channing Frye, former NBA player, is on. Channing has a lot of friends in the league, including Kevin Love. But Channing came out and basically said that the Heat were waiting on the tarmac for 5 hours, and that Jimmy didn't tell them what he was doing. And I can just tell you that that is false. Ernie, his friend, came out and said it was false. Bernie Lee, his agent, came out and called it 1,000% false. I can tell you it's 1,000,000% false. And the Heat, it just didn't happen that way. Here's what happened. Jimmy let the Heat know that he had business obligations, as he often does. Okay. And he asked if it was okay to take a separate flight, or it was asked of the Heat if he could take a separate flight, and the Heat said no. They denied the request. They want him to be part of the team right now until he's done with the team. Now, we know he's taken some separate flights before. Some of those have been approved, some have not been approved, and the ones they haven't been approved, to my knowledge, he has gotten on the plane, okay, with the Heat. In this case, he just never showed up. And that's where the suspension came. So this is not a case of wait. The Heat are not waiting 5 hours for anybody, okay? I mean, seriously. Like, I'll tell a little inside story here. Spo is known for being kind of late to planes. I can tell you they don't leave without Spo. But this other stuff, like, no, they're not going to wait for 5 hours. When you saw that report, before we get to where the Jimmy trade situation is, what did you make of the Heat sitting there for 5 hours? I guess asking the captain if it's okay to leave.
I just found it pretty hilarious that was the story that was trying to be spun, because if you know an organization that's run by Pat Riley, you have Eric Spoelstra, you have Mickey Arison, you have the no nonsense approach they take to basketball, and even LeBron James. I'm wearing the St. Vincent St. Mary jersey in honor of LeBron James, another superstar that ended up departing from the Miami Heat at some point. He didn't get that kind of leeway. He wasn't running 5 hours late in the planes waiting on the tarmac. So I just found it, funny and kind of, basically absurd that was even entertained by the large population of people.
Well, I think it's because at this point they think Jimmy's capable of anything. I think that's where we're at in this situation. But again, the Heat would have to oblige that and basically sit there and wait for him. They were not going to do that. No. All right. The next one here, the trade situation. So there's been these ebbs and flows on social media in terms of where the trade stands. And, one thing will come out and everybody like, oh, they're close to something. I can tell you right now, definitively, they're not close to anything. They're not close to anything. And there's a few reasons for that. They just not gotten an offer that we know what they want. They want contracts that don't go out too far. They want young, sort of athletic, switchable type players, cost controlled, essentially. And obviously, if you can get pick assets, then you try to get pick assets. That's kind of where this is. They're not against Jimmy going to Phoenix, but they're not going to do the one-to-one deal with Phoenix for Bradley Beal. So there has to be some other team that gives the Heat something that they want. We've heard a lot about Milwaukee and some other teams involved. I can tell you none of that is close right now. At least that as of, was it 3:00 or 4:00 on Saturday? The one team that had emerged as a trade partner, I've been told, was Memphis. And I don't think it's a coincidence, nor do the Heat think it's a coincidence, that as soon as word of that started to get out, that all of a sudden there were these leaks that Jimmy would not play in Memphis. But I can tell you that at least at this moment, those leaks have had the effect of freezing those trade discussions, because Memphis is not going to trade for a player who doesn't want to be there. So if he didn't want to go to Memphis, it looks like he's going to get his way here, but it doesn't look like he's going to get to go anywhere because there is no trade right now with Phoenix that exists. The Memphis part of this, I've said, and this is where I wanted to bring you on this. I think if you can get Jalen Wells in a deal, that would be something I would try to do. The other stuff, Conchar, Kennard, Brandon Clark, who showed some promise at one point, doesn't do a lot for me. But Jalen Wells is a guy who's a second-round pick who's popped this year. And I think they should be looking for long wings who can play next to Tyler and protect him defensively. That's what I would be trying to get, more so than a point guard to pair with him. You like him, right?
Yeah, I do. So, I didn't get to scout Jalen Wells early in the process because there's so many prospects and, being a one-man show, it took a while. But what I saw from him in Summer League early in the season, he's outplayed his draft position by a lot. He's been terrific. The ability to knock down shots and defend and the kind of athletic profile that he has fits right in what the Heat would need and what they're looking for. Similarly, except for in a bigger frame, what they were looking for from the guard, Terry Rozier, that's currently on the team. So he would slot in, be a young guy that can develop with the core and alongside Tyler. But to me, you'd need more than just Jalen Wells, of course, outside the salary stuff. to do a 1-for-1, like with Jimmy. Like you need some sort of draft capital.
Marcus Smart would likely be in there for the salary part of it, and he's still a functional player. He's not what he was.
Right.
It reminds me, not reminds me, but it's kind of similar to what we've talked about with Ryan Dunn. That's a piece that you would want out of Phoenix.
Right.
He was drafted a little before Wells, but these are the types of players that they look like Heat players, and they could be part of this core going forward. And the conversation about their interest in Bruce Brown, who has some similarities to these kind of players, actually.
Right.
And Bruce is a player that the Heat know well, and I have heard the Heat are in on him. How that plays out, we'll see. But he has that expiring contract. Miami guy, Spo knows him well. There's some attract, and obviously they know him well from the finals, where he was part of the championship team in Denver. So that's one to watch. But the Memphis thing of this part of this, just to clarify, right now it's not moving. Now that doesn't mean it can't move, but if Jimmy and his people, whoever it is, he says he hasn't said anything. His people keep getting it out there that he's not going to play for this team or this team or this team or this team. I don't see how a trade's going to get made here. I just
Deadlines
don't.
create urgency
beyond the way he's acting.
What's that? Deadlines create urgency.
They do.
So that changes things as we go down the line, though.
Right. Well, we just did a whole episode on teams that could rent him, and Greg mentioned the Clippers or Denver. Jimmy, I think, again, if you're looking at a situation to win, he can win in Memphis right away.
Right.
The question is whether they would extend him, and the likelihood of that is next to nil, I think. But based on their other obligations, they got to pay Jaren Jackson Jr. So he knows that this would be a temporary thing. How much of your future, if you're Memphis, are you going to give up for him? Although there is the benefit of getting his contract off the books, after this year. Of course, he could opt in also, but it doesn't seem that he'd be likely to do that somewhere else. But we would see. But anyway, the Memphis part of this, again, it's kind of cooling right now, my understanding, and there's really nothing else going on. Like all these teams we've speculated, we've talked about, like there's a lot of like circling sharks right now, but there's nobody going in for a bite at this stage. That's kind of where we're at.
But this works to Jimmy's advantage because he wants to go to Phoenix. Everybody knows he wants to go to Phoenix. Because he's not up against a deadline to get out of Miami, he doesn't have to take a Memphis deal. You know what I mean? So like I can see the purpose of his camp delaying until you get closer to that deadline. Now, if it's looking like, I might have to stay in Miami, there may be more urgency on his part to be more accommodating somewhere else.
Possibly, or he could just say, I'm just going to screw him over and opt in next year, and we'll just play this game next season. Right. Okay, here's the next part of this. This is not from Heat sources, but just from some sources I've talked to who are close to the Phoenix situation. I know there's been some reports about it, how Ishbia will do whatever it takes to get Jimmy, including trading all 3 first-round picks he just got. That's contrary to the info I've been getting. The info I've been getting is that they are open to moving on to something else. Now, I don't know if that's posturing or leverage or what it is, but you're starting to hear Levine mentioned there and in Milwaukee. But you are starting to hear it there, and there's a possibility that they could just basically try to get a little leaner here, contract-wise. Not that it's a lot leaner, but to go from Beal to Levine and maybe throw in a pick asset to get that done. Now, would he waive his no-trade clause to go to Chicago? People think he would because Billy Donovan is there. So but the point of this is you say, well, it's on Jimmy's side now, but if Phoenix goes out and gets Zach LaVine, then that's over. Then Jimmy's not going to Phoenix. He's not going to Phoenix now, and he's not going this offseason either. So that's something to watch here, is that I don't think the Suns are going to wait forever based on the stuff that I've been hearing. All right, on the other side of this, let's get into what they do with Jimmy if and when he comes back. Before we do, I want to mention a great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, our friends over at Water Cleanup. You can find them at Water Cleanup of Florida. That's WCUFL.com. Water Cleanup of Florida, your one-stop shop. If you've got a leak in your home, your business, reach out to them right away. They can do the preventative maintenance. They also can clean it up if it's gotten that far. They can also work with your insurance company. They have more than 100 5-star reviews on Google. Water Cleanup of Florida, WCUFL.com. If you've got the schmutz, they got the guts.
They got the guts.
There you go. Nobody does it as convincingly as Greg, so it's okay. I don't know that he's got the guts lately. All right. I put this on the Discord also. Again, all of this has been up for about 3-4 hours. So before the national media reports it in 3 days. The Heat have not yet finalized the plan for Jimmy Butler's return. I don't think it's happening the rest of today either. This is something they're going to deal with on Sunday. They have some options. Okay, the suspension, they can't really extend it right now. I don't think he's done. I know there was that incident at the paddle club, but I haven't heard anything that's going to lead to a suspension. So right now, they've suspended him twice already, total of 9 games without pay. Players Association is going to do what they're going to do to try to fight this. But the Heat know they can't just keep suspending him if there's no direct violation. Okay.
Right.
So there is the option of bringing him back Sunday into Monday's game against Orlando. But there's also the option, and I can tell you the coaching staff doesn't want it. They don't want it. Okay.
And
I'm not
rightfully
speaking about
so.
one coach. Right. I'm just saying, I'm not speaking of one coach. I'm saying the staff. Greg has spoken on this. I've checked it out. They don't want to, and right, like you said, rightfully so. They're also starting a 20-year-old at center. They've got an impressionable young team, and to have somebody out there who's clearly coasting, walking out to introductions before everybody else, not engaged in the huddles, like it's just not, it's not the kind of thing that they want. And it's very hard to move
anti-Heat
on and
culture.
It is. And you also don't know what you're getting from the guy, Adel. That's the problem. Like you don't know if is he trying in this quarter or not. But let me ask you this. One option is to bring him back, or you bring him back. If he refuses to come back, you just suspend him, you send him home. I think the Heat kind of want that, honestly. But I don't think he's going to do that because then he's losing more pay.
Correct.
You could bring him back and put him on the end of the bench. And I know it's a consideration. I'm not saying it's a strong consideration right now, but I know it's an option. I don't know if Spo would do it.
Well, let me ask you how that works. So he's there. Obviously, he's going to be way down at the end of the bench away from the rest of the team. He's going to create a spectacle and a distraction even more than he already has than when he actually plays. So none of the options are good options. And if the staff is sick of him, I mean, I kind of, this is my personal opinion, I kind of think you have to send him home. Like, I don't know how you can continue down this road with those young, impressionable players and with your other established players like Bam and Tyler to continue to trot him out there to be this big distraction and say, we want to win games and we want to take this seriously, because you are completely unserious because of the spectacle that is Jimmy Butler.
I'm with you. And it's not my money.
True.
But it's a lot of money. I mean, if you're sending him, look, if you have a trade that you think you're going to execute in the next week, then you send him home. Right. We're sending you home. We're going to work out a trade. We'll pay you. Just go away. Okay. But we're going to get something done. They don't have a trade. They don't have anything they like. There's no certainty he's going to be traded by the trade deadline. In fact, the lean seems to be no. Although, like you said, right before the deadline, things change. Teams get desperate. Some other offers appear. Maybe Jimmy changes his stance on some things. So I think this could change. But for right now, it doesn't look like they have anything that's close. So you're facing the prospect of sending him home for, what, 30 – no, it's more than that. Hold on. How many games are we into the season right now? 43, right? 42, 43?
I believe so, yes.
43. Okay, so 44. He's already been suspended for 9 of the 44. He missed like 8 others at this point. So you've already, for the ones he missed where he was injured or sick or whatever, you paid him for those. Right. Now, you didn't pay him for 9. You're talking about paying him for like 38 games to sit at home, potentially. You're talking about that's like 20, I don't know, that's like $21 million, $22 million that he
can't do that.
Watch him be on Instagram and playing dominoes, and
it would have to be up into the deadline. You could sit him till the deadline. That's considerably closer.
And then what? Let's say you don't trade him. Then what?
Well, you have to. Yeah, you have to deal with it at that point. You have to be like, hey, Jimmy, look, we're stuck in this thing together. It's a bad marriage. We're just going to have to make it work for the kids. That's what you got to basically say.
But the problem is you don't want the kids to see you fighting, right?
But that's why you send them home until the deadline, and then you deal with it and address it then.
No, but I'm saying that when you address it, you're saying you bring it back for the kids. But by that point, you're going to have where these guys are playing significant movement. Like the train will have moved on. That's 2 more weeks. Like train will have moved on without him, and then you're going to bring him back. Like I don't know.
But if you bring him back, right? You bring him back. You've obviously seen how he's disruptive with not being with the team, not being in the huddle. When he plays, he gives one effort defensively. He'll guard his man. He'll maybe shoot a passing lane, but there's no second rotational help, third extra help. There's no diving for loose balls, which is his hallmark, of how he got to superstardom.
Yeah.
What does that show to the kids?
I get it, but I understand sending him home and saying, okay, 2 weeks, 6 games worth of pay, whatever.
Right.
Okay, we'll eat it. But then to bring him back, see, this is where it gets really messy. Like
there's no good options though. Do you see what I mean? I would rather send him home until the deadline and hope your ability to facilitate a deal goes through. Like you got to at least bank on that. And then if not, let the chips fall where they may because you had no good options to begin with. That's where I'm at personally at this point. I'm sick of it, to be honest. I'm just sick of it.
Well, I think they are too. The fans, I know that the fans are. I know social media, public sentiment is very much against him. Even on Twitter, where it would tend to be more against the front office. Right. It's like 90% against him. And I don't like seeing this stuff. And I don't know if that was about basketball or not. I don't like seeing stuff about people harassing him in public. He did a lot. He did a lot for this town. He gave this town a lot of joy. That's too far. Okay.
Completely unacceptable.
I didn't mean to use the word joy. That was unintentional. But I'm just saying, like, he gave him a lot of excitement. Okay.
Right.
And I don't like that. That's not cool. But that's kind of where we're at. And the thing about him is he's not going to hide. He's not going to hide. Like, he's going to be out there. He's going to be trolling on social media. It's the stuff that they dealt with that we would be like, well, he said, why is he at a tennis tournament the day before? That we were like, well, whatever. He's going to show up and score 28. But like now that's not the case. So now it's just annoying, honestly. And they're annoyed by it. They want this to go away. But like you said, there's no good options. And he has submarined his value enough that he's made it harder on them to make a move. And I know there are people around him who are like, well, see, the Heat have offers. I want some of these people who are around him to say what these offers have been.
Right.
Because I don't think there've been any. I don't think there've been any. There's been trash that they've been offered. Okay, long contracts. Based on just the little bits and pieces, they're not going to give me all the details. Okay, and I've done a little bit of research with agents to try to get a handle on some of the things that have been out there. But like, there's nothing close. There's nothing that Heat fans would look at and be okay with.
You know what's sad about all this? The Heat fan is being deprived of the experience of a rookie who was drafted late in the first round, outperforming his draft value for the last 9 games. And you could be completely excited about that growth and development. But we're here talking about a disgruntled superstar who is tanking his own trade value.
Right. Well, look,
that's the sad part.
It is, but it's honestly the best thing for the long term because we have said that they have had trouble picking a direction. And these two things happening at the same time. A 20-year-old center who's a year ahead of schedule. They were not expecting this year. They were expecting maybe he'd blossom into this next season. His work ethic's been great. They all describe him as a sponge. He has exceeded expectations. We'll see if it lasts, but there's a lot of positive things to take hold of here. But that and Jimmy deciding he doesn't want to be part of the future has made their decisions easy. Okay, except the execution now. It's like we know what we want to do, and we want to build around this young core, supplement it, and then try to bring in a star to lead it. Like that should be the plan. Okay, get the assets. But the problem is execution of it, and it's very hard to trade someone who is making it hard to be traded. That's where we're at. All right, so that was the major stuff that was on off the floor today. You can also follow Alex's thoughts. He has very specific thoughts on this. I've never seen Alex quite so passionate about anything on the Heat side before, as he has been on this. So catch his thoughts on off the floor as well. And the one other thing I'll say is the Heat maintained that they thought that after a very strong training camp, Jimmy was going to play this season out, play hard. Something happened after Phoenix visited him on December 7th. So something happened. I think we know.
Saying. Just saying.
All right, Adel, we appreciate it. This probably will get out before the game tonight. So if it does, we'll be on there later tonight as well. Have a good one, everybody.
Take care.